Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Heidi from My Reading Life, and I'm here today to ask a question of you, and the question has to do with magazines and how you incorporate them into your reading life. I am asking myself this question recently because for my birthday, my husband bought me a subscription to The Atlantic magazine. And this magazine, I'm super excited to have in my life. It has, The Atlantic is a magazine that kind of talks a lot about American politics and cultural life and has book reviews in it, and some really big name authors write for The Atlantic. Probably the most famous of which is Ta-Nehisi Coates, is a staff writer for The Atlantic. But there's a lot of other very, very good writers that are writing for or submitting pieces to The Atlantic. And so the reason why I'm questioning how to incorporate this into my reading life is because, of course, it takes up a lot of time to read a magazine like this. This is not just a, flip through and look at the pictures kind of magazine. This is a magazine with long form essays in it and a longer, more heavily researched articles, as well as some shorter pieces. But for example, in the October issue of The Atlantic, Ta-Nehisi Coates has a essay, The First White President, which is actually the last chapter of his latest book, We Were 8 Years in Power. And The First White President is an article in here that goes for, let's see how many pages it goes for. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10, 12 pages long. And the text is, this one has some pictures, but like this is a 2-page layout of this article. So you can see that if you read this magazine cover to cover, which I am doing, there's a lot of reading involved in there. So then the question becomes do I count this in my reading? How do I record this in my reading? Because if I'm spending, 3 or 4 hours of time to read this magazine cover to cover, I could have read a book in that time. I could have easily read a full book in the same amount of time it took me to read this magazine. And I also wonder, I do count graphic novels in my reading counts for the year. I record them in my reading journal and consider them this equal to a book of 800 pages. And so I wonder if I should be including these magazines as simply another piece of my reading. Should I count them? Should I not count them? And I'm wondering what you all do. Do you track your magazine reading? How do you feel about, the amount of time that you might spend reading magazines? Do you feel like that takes away from your reading time? Do you feel like it adds to your reading time? I feel like that reading these magazines is going to increase, it does take away from the time that I could be reading other things, but what I'm getting out of it is what I want. I want to read more topically about current cultural and political events and to be more informed about those things. So I feel like being subscribed to a magazine like this will do that for me. But I also kind of feel like, well, maybe I should just be counting, one magazine read as one book read. So that's my question to you out there, BookTube. What do you think? Do you count magazines in your books read total? Would you ever do that? Do you think magazine reading is in no way comparable to book reading? I'm very interested to know your thoughts. And if you do track magazine reading, how you track that. This kind of also plays into some thoughts that I've been having recently about whether or not you read individual short stories like on their own and how you might track those. Say you just read a short story online, or you read one short story out of a collection but you don't read the rest if it's an anthology or something like that. Do you track that? So just my thoughts and sort of my musings about how maybe we might track things other than an actual book by definition, or if we even should track that in our reading lives. I'm very interested to hear what you all think about this, and I'll talk to you later.